One DNA test changed everything I knew about my family. I wasn't expecting my whole world to collapse on a random Tuesday night. I had taken the test as a joke, literally a joke. My cousin, Kiera, bought two ancestry kits during a flash sale and dared me to do one with her. "Come on, girl," she said, waving the box in my face. "We'll find out if we're actually Nigerian royalty like Grandma keeps claiming." I laughed, rolled my eyes, and spit into the tube. Nothing serious. Nothing dramatic. Just a dumb little experiment to distract myself from life. At the time, everything felt normal, stable, predictable. My parents had been married for 38 years. My mom was a retired nurse who collected scented candles like they were Pokemon cards. My dad was my hero. He taught me how to ride a bike, how to braid cornrows, how to change a tire, how to show up for people even when it's hard, how to stay kind when the world isn't. He called me kiddo even after I turned 29. He was the kind of dad people wished they had. And that's why what happened next felt so impossible. 2 weeks after sending the test in, I got the email. "Your DNA results are ready." I clicked without thinking, expecting something basic like 40% West African, 30% Caribbean, 20% European, 10% mystery spice from somewhere my ancestors forgot to label. Instead, I froze. Right there at the top. No paternal match found. My eyes blurred. I blinked hard. Refreshed the page. Refreshed again. Nothing changed. Under biological father, it just said, unknown. Not enough genetic similarity detected. At first, I actually laughed. I thought the website glitched. But then I scrolled. A message popped up. Potential paternal relative match. 48% shared DNA. Estimated relationship. Half-sibling. A name I had never seen appeared beneath it. A man 2 years older than me. A man born in the same city. A man whose face looked, God. It looked so much like mine that my stomach dropped to the floor. My breath caught. My pulse hammered. My hands shook so hard, I almost dropped my phone. I whispered into the empty room, "Dad." But no answer came. Just silence. A deep, terrifying silence. That was the moment, the exact second, my life split into before and after. I didn't confront my parents immediately. I couldn't. I spent the next 3 days unable to sleep, scrolling every forum online. Can DNA tests be wrong? What if my dad isn't my biological father? How do I tell my family? Nothing helped. I kept staring at the stranger's profile. Same eyes. Same cheekbones. Same crooked smile. A half-brother I never knew existed. And if he was real, then so was the truth my parents had been hiding. Finally, on Friday night, I drove to my parents' house. Mom opened the door with her usual warmth. "Sweetheart, you're just in time. I made peach cobbler." I smiled too wide, too stiff. Dad looked up from the couch, glasses low on his nose, smiling like always. "Hey kiddo, you okay? You look pale." My heart cracked. How do you tell the man who raised you that science says he isn't yours? I sat across from them, held my phone tightly, and said, "Mom, Dad, I need to ask you something, and I need the truth." They exchanged a look, quick, sharp, loaded with years of something I didn't recognize. My chest tightened. Dad removed his glasses. "What is it, honey?" I swallowed hard. "I took a DNA test." Mom's face changed instantly. Her smile collapsed. Her shoulders stiffened. Her eyes widened, just barely, but enough for me to see fear. Real fear. Dad went still. Completely still. Like someone hit pause on him. I forced the words out. "It says you're not my biological father." The silence that followed. God. It felt like the walls bent inward. Mom covered her mouth. Dad closed his eyes. And that alone, that one tiny gesture, told me everything. The test wasn't wrong. My life wasn't a glitch. This was the truth. A truth they buried. A truth they prayed would stay buried. But secrets always grow roots. And eventually they always find sunlight. "Is it true?" I whispered. Mom's voice broke first. Yes. I felt the ground fall out beneath me. Dad leaned forward, eyes glassy. Honey, please, let us explain. Explain? My voice cracked. How do you explain 30 years of lying to me? Mom burst into tears. Dad looked like someone had ripped his heart out. But I couldn't feel anything yet. Just shock. Thick, numbing shock. Who is he? I asked. I matched with someone, a half-brother. Who is my father? Mom sobbed into her hands. Dad stared at the floor, jaw clenched so tightly, the muscle twitched. Finally, he said softly, you have to understand, I always saw you as mine. That didn't answer the question. Who is he? I repeated. And that's when Mom whispered his name. A name I hadn't heard in 20 years. A name from family history we never discussed. A name tied to a wound everyone avoided. My uncle. My mother's ex-fiancé. My dad's older brother. My biological father. I didn't understand the name at first. It entered the room like a ghost, familiar, unwelcome, freezing the air instantly. My uncle. My mother's ex-fiancé. My father's older brother. A man whose picture had been removed from every album years ago. A man we didn't talk about. My biological father. My voice trembled. You mean him? Mom nods shakily. Dad presses his hand against his forehead like he's suddenly aged 10 years. Everything inside me twisted. He wasn't some stranger. He wasn't some man my mother met once. He wasn't a fling or a mistake or an accident. He was family. Blood of my blood. A man who had disappeared without a trace when I was 8 years old. I remembered flashes. His loud laughter. The smell of motor oil on his clothes. His heavy boots on the porch. The birthday card he gave me with glitter stars glued on crooked. And then nothing.
No visits.
No calls.
No explanations.
Just silence. A silence I now understood was intentional. A silence built to hide me. I stared at my mother, barely able to speak. So, what happened?
How? When?
Mom squeezed her shaking hands together. We were young, she whispered. Stupid, confused. Your father and his brother, they were close, and I… She broke off, sobbing. Dad gently touched her shoulder. I forgave her, he said softly. We all make mistakes, but when she found out she was pregnant, he wanted nothing to do with it. My stomach dropped. He abandoned you? I asked, stunned. Dad shook his head slowly. No, kiddo, he abandoned you. Those words stabbed deeper than anything else. Because no matter how angry I felt at my mother for lying, he was the one who walked away. And yet somehow, I still felt the sting of the lie sharper. Mom wiped her eyes. I told your dad the truth right away. We cried for days, but he said he wanted you, he wanted to raise you, so we made a decision. I swallowed hard. A decision to lie to me? Mom flinched. It wasn't supposed to be a lie forever, she whispered. We just wanted to protect you. And then time passed, years passed. Every time we tried to tell you, you were too young, then too emotional, then too busy, and then too grown. Dad added quietly. And by then, you were ours, you were my daughter. I looked at him. Really looked. The man who taught me to ride a bike. The man who sat in the ER holding my hand after I broke my wrist. The man who read every school paper I wrote. The man who came to every graduation, every award ceremony, every heartbreak. He wasn't lying. He had been my father in every way that mattered. But it didn't erase the betrayal. Not even close. I stood abruptly. I need air. Mom reached for me. I stepped back. Please, sweetheart. I just need time, I whispered, already walking toward the door. I can't breathe in here. Dad's voice cracked behind me. Kiddo, don't shut us out. But I couldn't turn around.
Not yet.
Because if I did, the weight of everything would crush me. Outside, the night felt too still, like the world was holding its breath. Streetlights buzzed. Cicadas hummed in the trees. A dog barked somewhere far away. But inside my chest, chaos. The reality churned like a storm. My biological father was missing for my entire life. My mother married 2 brothers. My father raised another man's child. My family kept a secret that defined me. And now I had a half-brother I'd never met. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles whitened. I didn't cry.
Not yet.
Shock held everything in place, like emotional anesthesia. Eventually, I opened my phone. The Ancestry website was still on the screen. My half-brother's profile stared back at me. His name, Elijah. Age, 31. Location, Chicago. His bio was simple. Musician looking for family. My breath caught. Looking for family. But did he mean me? Did he know? Did he have answers I needed? The app showed a notification. Elijah sent you a message. My heart thundered. With trembling fingers, I opened it. His message was only one sentence. I think we should talk. I stared at Elijah's message for a long time. I think we should talk.
So calm.
So simple.
So terrifying.
My whole life had just cracked open like an egg, spilling secrets everywhere, and here was this stranger, this man who shared half my DNA, reaching across a digital void. I didn't know whether to feel grateful, terrified, or furious. Maybe all three. I typed something, deleted it, typed again, deleted again. Finally, I wrote, "Okay, when?" He replied almost instantly. "Tonight, if you're ready."
Tonight?
My pulse spiked. I looked at my reflection in the car window, wide eyes, trembling lips, a woman who no longer recognized her own origin story. But a small voice inside me whispered, "You deserve answers." So I texted back, "Where?" A few seconds later, Moonrise Cafe on 9th. I'll be in the back booth, wearing a blue jacket. I parked half a block away and sat there for a full minute with the engine off, fighting the urge to run back home. Or run anywhere.
Truth is heavy.
It weighs the body down. It makes a person slow, uncertain, scared. But the truth also pulls. It yanks at you until you face it. So I got out and walked. The cafe was small and warm, glowing with soft yellow light. A bell above the door chimed as I stepped inside. And there he was, Elijah, sitting in a corner booth, blue denim jacket, hands clasped together like he'd been praying. He looked up. Our eyes met. And something inside me cracked, because looking at him felt like looking into a slightly distorted mirror. Same cheekbones. Same mouth shape. Same tiredness behind the eyes. He stood slowly. "Hey," he said, voice soft but steady. "Hey," I echoed. We sat. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was thick, meaningful, like both of us were afraid to break it wrong. Finally, Elijah exhaled. "I figured you got your results." "That obvious?" I tried to joke, but my voice wobbled. He gave a sad half-smile. "I've been waiting for someone like you to show up." "What do you mean, someone like me?" He hesitated, then said something that made my stomach twist. "I'm not the only one. There are 4 of us." I blinked.
Froze.
4? He nodded. 4 kids, same father. None of us knew about each other until DNA tests started matching. I felt dizzy. My uncle fathered 4 children? Elijah nodded again, his jaw tightening. Across 3 states, none of the mothers knew about each other either. My heart pounded like a drum. "What happened to him?" I whispered. "Where is he?" Elijah's expression changed. Something dark flickered across his face. Not anger, not sadness, but a mix of both. "No one knows," he said quietly. "He vanished when I was 12, walked out of the house, never came back." "That's what my parents said." I murmured. Elijah looked at me for a long moment. Then he dropped the real bomb. "But I don't think he disappeared. I think he was running." "Running from what?" "From all of us." He leaned back, rubbing his forehead. "My mom told me he had affairs, multiple, that he didn't show up for child support, that he bounced between jobs and relationships like a ghost, but everything blew up when one of the moms pressed charges." My breath stalled. "What kind of charges?" "Paternity fraud, child neglect, financial abandonment." He was supposed to appear in court. Instead, he left the state, never came back. The cafe noise faded until all I could hear was blood rushing in my ears. Elijah, my voice cracked. Are you saying he disappeared because of us? I'm saying your arrival makes 5. My hands trembled. Did he ever contact you again? I asked. No, Elijah said, but someone else did. My spine stiffened.
Who?
He looked me dead in the eyes. My sister, one of the others, her name is Ava, and she said our father left something behind, something he meant for all of us. I swallowed hard. What kind of something? Elijah slid a small, worn envelope across the table. My name wasn't on it, but his was.
His real name.
My biological father's. A man I never met, and somehow still belonged to. My fingers hovered over the envelope. What's inside? Elijah's voice dropped to a whisper. A clue. A clue to what? To why he ran. My fingers hovered over the envelope like it might burn me. Elijah watched silently, hands folded, chest rising and falling with a kind of nervousness that felt too familiar. We shared the same origin, the same wound, even if we didn't grow up together. Finally, I opened it. The paper was yellowed at the edges, folded so many times it had creases like scars. Inside was a single sheet, written in sharp, rushed handwriting. But it wasn't addressed to Elijah. It was addressed to every child I failed. I felt my throat close. Elijah motioned gently. Read it.
So I did.
If you're reading this, then the truth found you. I'm not proud of what I've done. I'm not proud of who I became. But I need you to know one thing. It wasn't your fault. My vision blurred. I left because I was weak. Because I couldn't face the consequences. Because every time I looked at one of you, I saw the man I wasn't. Your mothers deserved better. You deserved better. And I was afraid you'd grow to hate me. I didn't want to see that in your eyes. A shaky breath escaped me. Elijah, Ava, Jasmine, and the child I never met. I hope someday you forgive me, but I don't expect it. That line hit me like a punch. I won't be found. Not because I don't care, but because I cannot stand in the ruins I made. And at the bottom, instead of a signature, one sentence underlined twice. Tell the truth, even when it breaks you. I sat there stunned. Elijah didn't look surprised. He sent the same letter to all of us, he said quietly. Ava found hers first. Jasmine found hers a year later. You're the last one. The last one? I repeated hollowly. The last piece of a broken puzzle. I folded the letter back carefully. Where is he now? I whispered. Elijah hesitated, then said the words I wasn't prepared for. He's dead. It felt like the cafe walls collapsed inward. My breath hitched. Tears rose instantly, violently, unexpectedly. But I never met him. I know. I never even saw him once, as an adult. I know. I didn't even get to yell at him. I whispered. I didn't get to ask him why. Elijah's eyes softened. That's why he left something else behind, he said quietly, something only you were meant to read. He slid a second, thinner envelope toward me. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a short message, almost nothing on the page, but the words hit harder than everything that came before. To the daughter I never met, you deserve to know where you come from. Not just the pain, the truth. I wasn't born in America. I came here as a teenager, chasing a life that didn't want me back. My real name is not the name they told you, and your roots are deeper than you were raised to believe. I was born in Ukraine, in a small village outside Poltava. It is the only part of me I was never ashamed of. If you ever go searching, start there. I stared at the page, heartbeat stumbling. Ukraine. My biological father was Ukrainian. Not African American like I spent my whole life believing. Not some ghost from my neighborhood. Not a man whose culture mirrored mine. A Ukrainian immigrant who changed his name, hid his past, and buried pieces of himself so deeply that not even his children knew the truth. I pressed the letter to my chest, feeling the weight of an identity I never knew I had. Elijah, I whispered. Did you know? He shook his head. None of us did. Ava found immigration documents. Everything lines up. I don't look like him, I murmured. You look like both your worlds, he said. And that's not something to run from. Tears finally fell. Not from grief, not from anger, but from the shock of suddenly expanding. Like my identity had been a room with 4 walls, and someone just knocked down 3 of them. When I left the cafe that night, the air felt colder, sharper, almost new. My parents cried when I confronted them again, but for the first time, we spoke honestly. Mom told me they hid his origin to avoid questions. Dad told me he feared losing me if I knew too early. I told them the truth. I can handle who I am. I just needed you to let me. And for the first time, they did. Months passed.
Imet Afa.
Then Jasmine. 3 siblings, 3 reflections of the same wounded man who left pieces of himself scattered across the world. Together we decided something simple, something healing. His absence would not define us. But his roots, the part of him he wasn't ashamed of, we deserved to know too. So 1 year later, I boarded a plane to Ukraine. To Poltava. To cobblestone streets and sunflower fields. To a language I didn't speak, but somehow recognized. To faces that echoed parts of my own. To a culture that felt like opening a door I didn't know belonged to me. I stood in the village where he was born. Where his parents, my grandparents, once lived. Where his story began long before mine did. And for the first time in my whole life, I didn't feel like a mystery. I felt whole. A Black woman with Ukrainian blood. A story stitched together from pain, truth, survival, and rediscovered roots. When I returned home, I wrote in my journal, "One DNA test didn't break my family. It rebuilt the truth." And finally, after years of silence, I could breathe.